Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hi, I'm Jeremy, and with Terri, we're the co-CEOs of Harvest Earnings. And you can be a fly on the wall as we talk about business practices we love and even more fun, the ones we don't.
Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Terri, how are you?
I'm doing fine. So I want to talk about a particular elephant in the boardroom today, and that is that at the top of the house, they don't talk about all of the little things that are going on in their company that impact earnings. And I want to talk about one in particular that impacts customer experience, but there's tons of them. They don't get talked about because the big fancy transformation projects, first of all, they just feel better. They feel bigger, even if they aren't, but they're sexier. It's more, I think people think, well, it needs more talent. The little things they don't need to be involved with. But so here's my example from last night. As you know, trying to see the nominated movies for the Oscars before the Oscar event. So we're up to 6 or 7, which is more than I've seen in a decade. But we watched last night Past Lives, and I did enjoy the movie. But here's the deal. The movie is partly in English and partly in Korean. So that necessitates subtitles. I mean, we don't speak Korean, and I would guess that most of their audience doesn't speak both. So subtitles are on, which is fine. We use them all the time anyway. There's 2 problems. One is they are so fast, even a fast reader, which I am, couldn't read them. They're a blip on the screen. And you're like, what? And if it's English, okay, you can hear it and process it if you're an English speaker. But if they're speaking Korean and you don't speak Korean, you don't have a chance. And then here's the other problem, which happens all the time and drives me nuts. White subtitles on a white background. I mean, who doesn't understand that this is a problem? But it happens all the time. So it's a thing. And so this movie, there's a pivotal conversation between the 2 main characters. They're speaking Korean. I missed at least 80% of it because there's a white background. I think they were sitting on a white bench, and the subtitles are white. So in this day and age, is there not some easy technology that either changes the colors of the subtitles or moves them, or I don't know what? But just leaving it as is useless. It's like there's no subtitle at all. It just disappears on the screen.
And when you think of all the money and effort that went into developing this movie,
Yeah,
and marketing it, and then this little touch point when the customer actually is experiencing the end product, there's this point of friction that's very frustrating.
yeah, it's terrible. So, I mean, you bring up a great point. So the producers raise a ton of money. They hire a director. They hire a writer, a bunch of writers probably. There's a writer's room, and then they have to get a director and the actors and all the rehearsing and the casting and the this and the that. And, subtitles to them seem probably like such a minor last thing, right? I mean, the script has been written, the actors have acted it out.
Yeah.
All somebody has to do is type in the words. And it shouldn't be hard. So to them, it's probably so minor given everything they've had to do. But to me, it was huge.
I'll give you another example where it's not just an issue of frivolous entertainment, which is probably not how the producers view this enormous enterprise.
Yeah.
But one of medical safety. You get bottle pills these days, and there's this label with teeny little print on it. And if you're looking to figure out like how many pills do I take or how often, things that, could have severe consequences if you get it wrong. Yep. Often you have to peel the label and open it up, and inside, instead of using all that new real estate to at least write in big legible letters, no. It's just the legal department going wild with tons of stuff in this teeny little print. And so again, the pharmaceutical companies have spent a fortune researching and developing these things. The marketing, the insurance companies, the doctors, this enormous enterprise. And then you get to the touch point with the customer and fail.
Yeah, and they
And
don't
this,
take into account at all that some people are visually impaired. I need readers, and even with readers on most of the time, I can't see the fine print of take no more than 2 doses within 8 hours or whatever. It's so tiny, and then throw in arthritis. So
yeah.
even peeling back the little thing to read the directions with your 3 times magnifying readers. I'm not wearing those yet, but it's
And I
it's
thought it was 8 doses in 2 hours.
exactly. Well,
So,
it's very hard to see.
so here you have this situation where huge amounts of good effort, incredible talent, all this stuff goes into something. And then these little touch points that actually matter a lot to whether the customer is frustrated, annoyed, will choose your product over some other product, those get dropped. And because they seem small, the magnitude of their importance is not really well understood. And because this happens up and down, many, many, many places within the system, within all these products and services, the cumulative impact is actually this huge drag on earnings that never gets really seen at the executive level as a big project, which is why some big transformational project can be approved and pursued and get a lot of attention, because no one realizes that the 500 examples like this within a company that you could probably relatively easily fix is worth a heck of a lot more and could be dealt with faster.
Yeah. And I know people sometimes hear us talking about this and go, but you're contradicting yourself, because you talk about gold plating and that sometimes the little details aren't worth the time you spend on them. But there's a big difference between that and worrying about the small details that do matter. So people say, well, is the devil in the details, or don't sweat the small stuff? Well, it's both. I mean, there are details that matter, and directions on a bottle of Advil matter versus, well, I've got this internal PowerPoint, and you know what, I don't like that shade of blue. A little different shade of blue would be better. So we're not contradicting ourselves. We're saying you've got to pick and choose. There are things that matter tremendously, and there are things that are not worth the minute you spend on.
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, in this, the elephant in the boardroom is the sad thing to us is these little issues are primarily known by the people in the company that are closest to the customer. They are mostly known, but they don't rise to the boardroom enough to get the attention. The boardroom doesn't have time for that one idea, and then they don't realize that there's thousands of these ideas. And
Right.
we have a great example. Maybe you want to tell the promo code story of somebody who did know the problem.
Yeah. So we were working with a client at the call center, and the call center, the CSRs, the call center reps, so customer service reps, know that they're getting a lot of calls from people who are really annoyed and frustrated. And why is that? Because the promo code is written somewhere in the bowels of operations and IT and Lord knows where the zeros look like O's and the fives and the S's. And it's funny, I never actually believed this confusion between fives and S's happened until I was looking at my own elevator in my own apartment building and realized that the S for sub-basement and the 5 were almost identical. Yeah. And the I's and the L's. And so what would happen is a customer would go on the web, put in the promo code, it wouldn't work, nothing would happen. In many cases, undoubtedly, that was the end, that they just gave up on the transaction. In other cases, they'd call the call center already riled up, and the call center operator would have to figure out what's the problem and how do we fix it. And again, a little touch point. But that little touch point could be easily fixed. And for the most part these days, people are using words that are recognizable and, they largely fix it, though not entirely.
No, my Blue Cross Blue Shield number is a joke, and you call and they want it, and I have to have people say, well, I don't know, is it a zero or no? And they'll say, oh, well, the first letter or the first character is a letter. Okay, then it's a no. But
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be this way?
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's not that it's a little thing with little importance and we're trying to get people to be perfect. It's that it's a little thing that turns out to be quite important. And when you got a ton of those little things, it's super important.
Yeah, and these little things cost companies money, right? All those calls into the call center, or the longer time I have to spend on the phone with Blue Cross, or
Yeah.
even my subtitle situation. I mean, if people miss parts of your movie, maybe they're not going to recommend it to friends, and it's going to cost you in distribution. I mean, these things matter. So I guess what we're saying is, top of the house, please realize there are hundreds, if not thousands, of little things that they can fix pretty darn easily if they pay attention to it. And individuals, what you do matters. I mean, maybe not everything, maybe not every little part of your job, but there's something you're doing. The person who is uploading those it matters, and maybe they're the voice. I don't know how this works, of course, but maybe they're the voice that needed to raise their hand and say, instructions to do this in white don't always work, or whatever.
Yeah. Though I would argue that it is leadership that needs to create the culture, the processes, the accountability to say, this is important and we are able to execute across all of these apparently, but not really, small things. And it's not just up to the individual 6 levels down trying to get through the day.
Agreed. So I guess the message is sweat the important small stuff.
Exactly.
Okay. Talk to
All
you
right.
later.
Bye-bye.